It's an honor to have you both here today with us. I want to start with you, Forest. You are undeniably one of the prominent artists in the world today. But beyond this, you're also an envoy of UNESCO. You were recently appointed as an advocate by Secretary General Ban Ki-moon for the SDGs. So obviously, you're not busy at all. I want to go back to 2012. You started your own foundation. Can you tell me more about this, and why did you decide to focus on peace and development?
Yeah, I started working with child soldiers there, and by working with them, I was able to start to understand what some of the conflicts that they were dealing with were, and also to hear some of their individual stories. And these stories about how they were dealing with their lives really struck me. Actually, it was one girl in particular, her name was Stella. And she said to me, she was in an internally displaced camp, and she was in a camp, and she was surrounded by people, but totally isolated. And I spoke to her, and she said, they tell me that I'm crazy, but maybe I am, because I don't know why I behave the way I do. And they tell me that I'm stupid. Maybe I am, because I don't do the things or know what to do in all the situations anymore. I've been a soldier since I was a child. And I watched this woman who was like totally isolated in this environment, and I said to myself, how does she reintegrate? How does she reconcile with this community? How can the community heal themselves from the anger they have towards her, and her be able to bring peace to herself? And so from that, recognizing this eternal conflict and this conflict of violence that occurs all over the world, I decided that perhaps I could be one of the participants to be able to work alongside them to help build peace builders and community builders. So I started what is the WPDI, the Whitaker Peace and Development Initiative, to work in countries all over the world. We're in 5 now, and as well as the US, that deals with gangs and violence and profiling, which is all over to find some form of healing for the pain and the conflicts that are going on in the world right now today.
Yeah, and I think, this is so timely. I think when you look at the conflicts happening in the world today, where it's a sad reality that in most countries, women are sitting in a refugee camp instead of the negotiation table. So what exactly are you doing to change that? I know you have some work with women as well, young girls in ICT.
Yeah, we have our programs are really trying to find gender equality in every aspect. Of course, you can't really find peace in the world if 50% of the world is women and they're not included in the same conversation. They have to be not only the brains behind, but also the instigators of a lot of our movement towards peace. I guess for ourselves, we had some of our programs, like we have one in South Africa, in Hamburg, where we work with 5 women there, and they're peace builders that have helped rebuild the community there. By rebuilding, I mean they're building homes, schools, and bringing peace to the community. And then we try to find gender equality inside of all of our programs. We've been pretty successful in South Sudan. In the beginning program, we had about 40%. But then this last program we've been working on, we only got 20%, which has been a struggle because of the different mores in the culture itself. But what we've done is, by training the people around them in gender sensitivity, we're now sending them out to the villages to hopefully be able to find, with the help of, actually with UN Women, we have a partnership with UN Women on this aspect of getting more women involved in the villages. And so when we get those women involved in the villages, it's really helpful. In those places, we've had computer centers, literacy centers, and we haven't been able to get the women involved even there because of the social mores, because of the taboos and stuff. Yeah. But then when we started to meet with the women leaders, they were able to help guide us to a way to fill those classrooms with women later. So it's a process that really is ongoing, but we'll continue to keep going,
Yeah, and Emma, you have some interesting statistics on this as well.
Yeah, so when I was looking into what you do, Forest, which blew my mind, by the way, because I'm obviously well acquainted with your work, and I'm such a huge admirer of yours, and then to look at your initiative and the work that you're doing, I was just amazed. But I started doing some research into women and peacekeeping, and even though we know that when women are involved in peacekeeping, peace is more sustainable, only 1 in 40 peace treaty signatories in the last 25 years were women. That's 1 in 40. So that made me realize how important what you're doing, and making sure that we have parity in peacekeeping, and we're finding women leaders who have voices.
Yes, definitely, and also with the grassroots portion of it. There's a lot of women who like are working, because when you go to peace conferences, you'll see a lot of most of the room is filled with women. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of people working on a grassroots level, making things happen. But I think as you're talking about on the level that you're discussing, there's a disparity, and it has to be worked on. The same disparity that happens all over the world with, like, take for instance in our Congress, there's only like 19% women in the United States Congress. So there's 50% women in the country. Same thing all over the world. There's all these different statistics about government, and when you look at 20%, I think all the countries, there's like 22% of them are in the parliament. We're talking about Congress for the U.S. and the parliaments the rest around the world. And it's just something that has to be dealt with. We have to lift up and start to recognize and start to elect individuals to office so that those voices can be really heard and help build society the way it should be built.
So this is something that's very personal to both of you. I think, it's safe to say that you get it. You understand why it's important. But I also want to hear, as you have engaged with other men, what are some of the sort of craziest things you've heard when you're talking about gender equality?
You hear lots of things, but, I think there's there was a story that a minister told me once, and it only applies because I think underneath all of this, there's always this sort of insidious thing that's in the bed that people have, that has to be corrected with people's psyche, the way they think about things. But this guy told me, he said that, they had dowries in his country, and he said that, what would he look like if his daughter went to university, which he sent his daughter to university in London, and then she comes back, and he doesn't receive, or she doesn't receive a dowry. How much does it lower her stature? How much does it make her look small and her not be important? And so it was a really interesting thing, because I disagree with him, but I understood what he was saying. I was saying, well, this has to be dealt with on a level that's so deeply embedded, because he's saying everybody will tell you that they don't do this. He said, but I'm just being honest with you. This is a minister. He said, this is really the way it is, And I guess we have to keep looking and see to make sure that this kind of thinking starts to be reframed, that we can break those frames and create new frames so that we can start to think about it differently, so we can understand. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Emma?
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think, one of the interesting ways that Forest and I, in the line of works that we do, when I think about the performing arts and how we perceive masculinity, and still how kind of rigid sometimes those definitions and those ideas of what a leading man can and can't do, and how he should and shouldn't act. And when I think about films like, The Pursuit of Happiness, where you see a man in the role of a primary caregiver, where you see Billy Elliot, The Color Purple, Brokeback Mountain, you see these pieces of art challenging those very rigid definitions. And I wanted to reference as well, Sam Taylor Johnson did a beautiful series of photographs called Crying Men, which Forest was part of, which really challenged the notion that men don't have tear ducts. It's a very confusing notion. Anyway, all of these things challenge these perceptions, and they make the roles that each of us get to play more complex, more whole, more real, more authentic. They make our jobs more interesting and truthful. I think gender equality does that, yeah.
I think that's an important segue into speaking about the arts, given that this is HeForShe Arts Week. We know, Emma, a lot of the emails we get from our male supporters, again, is around this refinement that they feel in terms of what it means to be a man, and the pressure of what that looks like. And we know more so that it's even more complex for men in the performing arts, especially guys that want to dance. And in 1988, William L. did a very powerful study where he went in a shopping mall and interviewed shoppers and asked them to describe in 15 words or less what a male ballet dancer is. And some of the words were very, very hurtful. It was homosexual, frail, vain. What has been your own personal experience with discrimination in the arts?
Discrimination in the arts?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I would say the biggest area of contrast for me has actually not been within the arts itself, but within probably the entertainment media and tabloids. I mean, I was obviously a child actress who made who is still making a transition, and thank you. I appreciate that, Elizabeth. But no, and I remember, you know, on my 18th birthday, I came out of my 18th birthday party, and photographers lay down on the pavement and took photographs up my skirt, which were then published on the front of the English tabloids the next morning. If they'd published the photographs 24 hours earlier, they would have been illegal, but because I turned 18, they were legal. And obviously, you know, Dan and Rupert, who are my male co-stars, don't wear skirts. But I think that's just one example of how my transition into womanhood was dealt very differently by the tabloid press than it was for my male counterpart.
Yeah. Forest, do you have anything to add to this one?
I mean, I think it's funny because like when I started early in the 80s and stuff, I was playing football on the varsity football team, you know, and at the same time I was doing a musical. And I remember coming to the football field and all the guys like imitating this dance that they'd seen me do, you know. And
do you want to show us?
I actually still remember the move. It wasn't very complicated, but I think at the time there was also a lot of badgering and stuff, and I think hopefully some of that's changed now. You know, I think certainly we've moved forward in some ways, and roles are blurring. At least we have like, I don't know, the most successful movie in all time. You have a female warrior, you know what I mean, fighting forward, and you have like. You know, Danish girl, you know, and different issues, and so that, you know, there's all these different things. I guess what I'd like to say is just that what we have to do as artists is to like really recognize the sort of images that we're projecting, and what we're doing, and because I was thinking when I was thinking about this conversation, there was something that I'd heard, which was about women and sexualization of women. Talking about film and just saying that, you know, women are extremely more sexualized than men in film, and that this is done in G movies as well as R movies. So our little kids are like still being framed in that example. But I think one of the other things that was really big was the thing that I said that 90% of the role models of the men who are portrayed as professionals, 90% of those people in film are men, you know. And I was like, wow, then what kind of images are we projecting? What are we imprinting in our own minds and imprinting in our children's minds? And we have to like look at that. And I guess that's my thought about it, you know.
Okay, thank you so much. I know we want to wrap up because we want to give media partners an opportunity to ask questions, but I do want to end on a positive note, focused on solutions. Emma, you have been incredibly passionate about this issue, and what most people don't know is that you actually work full-time on the HeForShe leadership team, which has also inspired, you know, your decision to take a year out. Mm-hmm. What's next in terms of gender equality, and also, you know, what can other people do to support?
I think a big part of it is certainly a recognition of the problem and the work that, you know, we have to do, and then but also being inspiring by the amount of momentum and all of the success that we're having. I think the development goals where we've outlined what we can achieve by 2030 are really great to have as a kind of, you know, to set a bar, to set a standard, to set something to aim for and galvanize around. And you know, I think that it's how we live our own lives and in our daily lives, and then being involved with the amazing work that Forest does with HeForShe. We just launched a new website earlier this year, which we're trying to build a kind of solutions or a toolkit, and we really want to crowdsource as many different strategies from all over the world that we can to try and build a really comprehensive guide to how we can make a tangible difference and how we can really, you know, kind of make it happen. So yeah, lots of ways.
Thank you so much, Emma. Forrest, a last thing for you. People in the room, people watching from around the world, what can they do starting today to support the important work that you're doing on peace and development?
Well, I mean, they can go to the website, wpdi.org, just to get more information and data for themselves about what they would like to do. I think certainly if they want to make some form of donation, that would be helpful to the people on the ground. But I think most importantly, like the great work that she's doing and continues to do, there's an opportunity here to look at the philosophy. And the philosophy is that we can all make an impact and all make a difference. And that you just choose, in your own grassroots way even, how you want to activate, how you want to allow something to change, to become change makers. And take that philosophy to become change makers, to make the world become the thing that you would like it to be. I think that's the most I would hope for coming out of it. Yeah.
Very powerful remarks. A round of applause